Hello. It is 2:59 on the 15th of November, 2024. Just in case you were wondering, it's all there. It's always starting a little early. And hopefully you shouldn't see this bit if you ever rewatch it. Not that you would, you're on live or you're not on at all. So if you haven't, I haven't edited it properly. So anyway, there we are. Hopefully we'll get some people start to join as it turns to 3 o'clock and they can sit there and tell me whether they can hear me or not. That would be marvelous. For anybody in the United Kingdom, they've probably worked out that we are very cold at the moment. It's all gone very cold. That's a little bit of the problem at the moment. But anyway, here we are, 3 o'clock. And I think if you're around, I think we have something that we lovingly refer to as the lurgy. And most people in the last few weeks have had something that they've not felt quite good. Oh, Rob's on. An escapee from the United Kingdom to better weather and nicer things. There we are. Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Well, in that case, I have a 15-second delay, which is normally good. I don't know what it's for. But anyway, let's give it a break and I shall start. Cool. Thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about long-term tactics for revenue growth. And it's always an interesting thing. Just say long-term. So really, what am I talking about when I'm talking about long-term tactics for revenue growth? I think you can change loads of things in a business. I think you change loads of things. A lot of the things we aim on changing really tend to be sort of efficiency changes. But efficiency changes don't really drive revenue. And so I'm really looking at this. And the way I've approached this is to look at this and think about it as to what a lot of clients say to me, which is, well, okay, we want to change. We want to do some growth. What should we do to grow? What should we do to grow? And I have some very basic assessment work to look at. Well, okay, how do you do growth? Now, I think I can tell you a little bit about Guido Scientific. Guido Scientific is a consultancy business I run. We have about 9 members. I think there are 4 of us at a senior level, a bunch of other people working, some of them on secondment. But we help companies launch their businesses or launch products, strengthen what they're doing, or accelerate for those looking to sell or exit. So anyway, that's enough about that. Short term, anything we want to change in a business is short term is about fast and small changes. I want to change a sales rep. I want to re-release a product. I want to do a promotion. These really are less than 6 months and will have very, very minimal impact to what you're doing. But they're so tempting because they're easy. And a lot of the time I hear, particularly engineering sides of people that run businesses, I'm just going to make the software better. It's going to be great. I'm just going to do this. We obsess about it. I've recently been really obsessing about email packages and platforms and automation. It's probably no good for me because it's a small change. Long term is about thinking and it's about really big changes. And we could really assess about really how big those changes should be. But really, it is hard to do long-term work because it's painful and it takes a long time. So let's look about this problem of change. And change is really, really very hard. And it's not just planning. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to do some revenue growth. I'm going to take some time out. I'm going to do some planning. But change is about bravery. Because you've got to do, the first thing you have to do is stop what you're doing and find the time to do stuff. And we go, well, how can I possibly stop? I'm so busy. You're not going to get anywhere unless you commit time to change. You're going to have to take a bunch of risks. And do you know what risk does? Risk puts you in the firing line, gets you in trouble, but nothing happens without it. Then you have to commit raw resources. You're going to have to spend money on stuff. You're going to have to get people doing things. You're going to have to say, I want an extra person. And again, you're putting yourself in a position of danger to a certain degree, which is why we don't like it. You're going to have to go back and revisit decisions you made in the past to work out whether they're right and what changed. You're going to have the same arguments again. You're going to have to stop active projects that are running and annoy everyone by going, we're no longer doing that because there's not enough money in it. And there are some really, really big things. You have to make the changes and you might not be in the business. You're going to make the changes for people that are going to be taking advantage of it when you're gone. And there is a lovely quote I like about society, which is society grows great when old men plant seeds for trees whose shade they will never sit in. Basically, you might not be around. You're not going to get paid for it for 3 or 4 years. So it's really hard. And you're going to annoy everyone. Change is really hard. People get really annoyed with change. And you're going to have uncomfortable conversations with people that you don't want to have. And they're going to have them. This is really hard. Change is unbelievably hard. And the fundamental reason of this is that we love change. We just don't like doing it. And we desperately want this change. We just don't want to do it. So the first thing is, if you want to get into revenue growth, just understand it ain't going to happen unless you move something fundamentally large. So that's the first thing I've got to think about. So are you up for this? Because look, it would be fantastic if I turn around, and there's a good reason. I have never said I will run the London Marathon, because I would have to run the London Marathon. That would be really hard. I don't want to do it. So you've got to pick what things you're willing to change for. And some people just aren't willing to change. Now, if you do want to change and you go, look, I want to build a sustainable business. I want to make the biggest thing go on with this. No matter what level you're doing this within the business, you've got to find time. You know, if I did want to run the London Marathon, when am I going to train? Right? How am I going to get this to be done? What am I giving up? You know, when am I going to train? I'm going to train in the evening. I'm going to see my wife anymore. I'm going to do it on a Saturday, not going to see my kid anymore. What am I giving up for this time? Most of the time, you're going to have to give up existing projects, get rid of a load of the waste in your system, and really find the time to consistently follow through. But you're going to need a team to do this change. Even again, if you're running the marathon, you need your wife on side, you need your friends. You're probably going to need somebody who's done it before, your training partners. So this might be, for example, your heads of your business, your teammates. You want to do this as a lunchtime activity type of thing. But you're going to need, maybe consultants is very kind of one of this, but you're going to need a team of people to make the change, because you can't make it on your own, right? It's very, very rare that you're going to get this done on your own. So you've got your stakeholders. And for me, everything that you really want to commit to change starts with going somewhere and locking yourself in. And we did this, we have a program, we do this with startups quite regularly, and we do it with some advanced businesses as well, because we do this thing called a stakeholder lock-in, where we have 2 days and we come to you and we normally go through and discuss absolutely everything. And we do some bits and pieces. Somebody's lost me. I'm going to keep going because it's recorded and hopefully it's all right. I haven't unplugged anything. If anyone can hear me, let me know. 15 seconds. You might have lost me. We'll see. I'm going to keep going just in case we are doing this. So I have internet. I will check. I've got internet. So I've got all these things in it. So let me just test it. Just anything. I have internet. I should be good. Oh, good. There we are. Right, I'm good. So someone else has got it. You can still see me. Brilliant. So there we go. We can. Then we're all in. So you've got to get some team. Get a lock-in. The best ever I've had with this in the business I was in was we went to a ski resort in Salt Lake City for 4 days, and we stayed in this hotel. There was no snow. It was just fine. So anyway, we go through this and we have to sit there and go through very, very difficult discussions about what we could do. Once you've done this, you then need the time to follow it through. You need the time of the people. You need everything else. And again, you can do this as running a business, or you can do this as a group of mates trying to make a change in your own region or your own territory. So you've got the time, you made the decision you want to change. Now you've got the problem of small things. And there is a point where you start to go, well, we're not changing anything unless it changes 5%. Okay. You try and change the revenue of a company by 5%, that's massive. It's really hard. You've got an oil tanker, right? So changing the revenue of a startup to 50% could be completely reasonable. Maybe 200% revenue change could be completely reasonable. Changing it for a large entity, like 10%, would be very, very hard. 10% of growth in a large company would be very difficult. GDP is running at 3% for most people. So the biggest thing I want really is reasonableness in your numbers. The numbers have to come from somewhere. You can't say, and I heard this with a company, there was a company once that said, we're going to be the next $1 billion microscope company. I'm like, well, there are 4 $1 billion microscope companies, and they're each 100 years old. So I don't know which one of them is going to lose for you to win your $1 billion. And there are a lot of these companies that will say, we're going to do something massive. Well, could we do something that's achievable and plannable? So you're going to get the problem of scale and over-egging, but you're also going to get lots of initial complaints, which are just noise. Oh, well, we really need to fix Sally's problem with the way that she does this and the way that we process an order. You don't, doesn't do anything for revenue at all. So these small micro changes, oh, wouldn't it be fantastic if we made a change in the software which allowed this to happen? Not big enough change. It's not changing anything. So we've really got to think about, well, okay, what are the rules for our change and can we do it? Now, if you know you want to change and you know we need to change by this amount, we've got to do certain amounts of things. So all of this stuff is good. What are you going to change? And how are you going to kind of basically, how are you going to segment what you're going to change? So for me, every time I look at a business, I want to look at the simple things I've got here are what are the things that we can change? And I want to put any idea into one of these buckets. I can change the market. I can go and say, this is too small a market. I want to move into a bigger market. Or I want to move into an adjacent market. Well, we can look at that. Or you can say, well, okay, I want more products or better products. That's a different way of handling it. Or you could say, well, look, we need better presence. We need to be seen more. We need to change our dealer structure. We need better salespeople, more salespeople. We need better marketing. We need better ways of doing stuff. Or we need to win more deals. Strangely enough, most people think they need to win more deals. I think they need to see more deals most of the time. And actually, most of the changes that companies make are company decisions to change hit rate because they're the most emotional decisions that you have, which are the ones that are, we didn't win that deal, let's change something to win that deal again. Not let's go find a bunch more people, let's go and change our operations in the way that we're covering product coverage, and let's change a market. We all fascinate on changing hit rates. You can do. But every single idea that you come up with a team, you got to go, does this change the market we're in? Does it redefine the market we're in? Does it change the products that we're selling on our coverage of products? Does it change our presence? Or does it change our ability to win deals that we're in? And if you can't get it, it's noise. And this is the biggest thing, just you've got to eliminate the noise when you're making these decisions. So let's look at market changes. Well, and this bit always annoyed me. Markets grow. You sit in a market, your market's going to go up each year. You have compound annual growth. So, every time we did a report in Roper, the answer was always, you're never putting less than 3% a year. So every year your business should grow by 3% regardless. Isn't that wonderful? You don't need to do anything. It's kind of hard, because you're kind of sitting there, you went up with the tide. But a lot of the time that's pretty hard. So, growing at 2 to 3 times the growth rate or the GDP of a country is really hard. So you're going to start to think about your markets. If you moved into an entirely different market, well, now you're eating fish from a different pond, as it were. But the biggest problem is markets are incredibly poorly defined. We're not very good at them. So in order to work out how do we move into another one, we are not great at doing the analysis. We need to do the analysis. It doesn't take long. You can probably analyze a market in a week pretty quick, do a quick view, you could do it in the morning if you wanted to. If you look, what I did some work on is, if you look at microscopy, a bit of background in this market, it's about $7 billion for microscopy as a market. Everything's in there. Everything's in there. Little slides, everything, all the way through. And if you said, well, okay, if I look in that market, I can go, well, there's this sub-market of people that want better images. Maybe they want super resolution or all these different techniques that you can use. That market's about $1 billion, right? And then if I look inside that market, I can say, well, okay, I'm a light sheet manufacturer. I make light sheet systems. And you say, well, okay, are you in the $7 billion market or the $1 billion market? Or are you even in a smaller subset of people that want to work and use the techniques where light sheet, maybe you're comparable to confocal, not the same as super resolution. Now, what if you use light sheet as a technique in a system for screening? Are you in the light sheet market or are you in the screening market? So, if you're in the light sheet market, maybe you should move into the screening market, right? So you really have to think about these markets and say, well, okay, maybe I could make a little sideways move here and I could get something from this. And I could use my technology in a different way. There are tools to assess the markets. There's something called Porter's 5 Forces. There's lots of different tools to assess markets. It's just Porter's 5 Forces is a particular bugbear of mine because what happens with Porter's Five Forces is everybody who comes out of a degree tells me that they can work in business because they know Porter's Five Forces. I'm like, why? How is this useful to you until 10, 20 years time when you're trying to assess moving into market? Like this is or buying a company. But you can like work out, is this a good market to move in, or are there tremendous barriers to entry in this market? Is it really aggressive? Do I want to be in it? So normally there are a bunch of markets that you could move to. You could even just simply move and say, well, I'm going to start selling in Japan. Well, that's more of a coverage, but you can move between these markets and do your definitions of your markets. And that's going to help a lot, right? Probably the biggest move is moving between a market. Now, you could go up and make new products. And this is what a lot of people want to jump to. It is the highest risk, most expensive and slowest thing you can do. Not saying don't do it. I'm saying be unbelievably careful doing it. And the first thing is cannibalization. I work for a company that continuously replaced a record with a CD, with them all the way through. We just replaced the same thing. And realistically, yes, we had to replace ourselves, and yes, we could do better. But most of the time, what we were just doing was impacting hit rate. We weren't changing how many people saw us. We just knew that if we got into a deal, we had a higher chance of winning it. So there's a lot of cannibalization instead of actual product growth and basket growth. It is incredibly expensive as you're trying up resources. So you basically, you're going to need to have a winner each time. And your time to revenue is going to be really long. You know, realistically, for any decent product, it's going to take 2 years to 3 years to build it and have any form of impact. Even if you're really good at it, getting it out, getting into the channel, getting it in front of people, 2 to 3 years. So when you're thinking about new products, you know, the first thing is how can you ensure you're building the correct thing? And for me, this is just about incredibly strong product management and product management that is being led by customers and not by engineering capability. It would be better to have somebody go and say the customers want this and the engineers say we don't know how to do that. You can either fix that problem a couple of different ways, than have engineering say we could do this, and then have a product manager execute on a capability and not anything anyone wanted. So loads of work with voice of customer, loads of work with product management skills, talking to customers, getting it work out, really understanding what the opportunity is for it. The other thing I want you to consider that's really important is, do you build it or do you buy it? So many things that we do could just be outsourced for speed. And you can keep your engineering people running at the same speed. You get less ownership, but you get it faster. You don't spend the engineering cost, but you make less per unit in most instances. So I think there's a lot to be said about, okay, look, basically, when I'm doing a product, what am I trying to impact? And as I said, there was a company that I met about two years ago, and they said, we are going to destroy the market. We're absolutely doing it. And they made an instrument, and they said, well, because we're changing the software that drives the instrument. I was like, okay, but that doesn't change the number of people you meet. That changes that when you meet them, you know, it'd be like going, I am the most attractive man on earth. You're all with me. But I don't go speed dating. Well, I could be significantly unattractive and meet loads of people through speed dating. I'd probably like to have a catch. Which one are you making better, right? So I kind of worry a little bit about sometimes that we make changes to products and we're impacting hit rate and we're not impacting product coverage. So again, you're going to be making new products is probably, other than marketing, the next biggest thing you can change. It is expensive. The next thing is, can we change our presence? Like we say, like how do we get more dances? How do we get more, speed date hits, right? And the presence is really a mix of channel coverage and quote rate. So channel coverage is like, how many deals do my salespeople see, my dealers or whatever? How many people do they actually get in front of? Are we actually getting in front of enough people? And it's mixed in with quote rate, which is basically, when I see a deal, do I get quoted? And this is horrifying for people because people go, oh, I got a distributor. Of course they quoted. Well, they quote you, but let me tell you as a salesperson, if I know somebody's got money, my job is to work out of my portfolio that I can sell, what thing I'm most likely to win that money with. And it might not be you. It might be a competitive product. It might be an entirely different piece of technology. But really, if you can get these things right, This is the fastest and biggest impact that you can have outside making a new product. And a lot of the time, I worked for Roper, and one of Roper's strategies was, look, we don't want to spend a lot of money on R&D, but we want to spend a lot of money on fixing presence. And that's something we think we can do. We've got good distribution networks. We can make this work so we can get in front of customers. So this is a real big impact thing. So, first thing you can think about is, and don't think about, if I fire one rep and get another rep, that's a minor change, right? You're talking about, do I have a good go-to-market strategy, and do I have the correct channels, right? Am I selling this thing in the right way? And we've seen in recent years that, nobody, you buy a mattress, a lot of people buy them on the internet, it arrives at your house and you've never lied on it, right? There are different ways to sell things, different ways to demonstrate things, different ways to do things. So do I have the correct go-to-market, and do I have the correct channels? That's a real big thing. Stop doing what you're doing and think about every other way of doing it and whether or not you can be more effective. And remember, don't drive efficiency. Efficiency is only there to fund other effectiveness, right? That's why when you think about it, don't go, oh, I could do this and it'd be really efficient. Yeah, but then what do you do with the resources? You make the rest of them more effective, and you can't be both. And then the other thing you can think about is, well, okay, how can I get my dealer channel more engaged with me so they pull my product out first? And how do I help my sales channel getting in front of more customers? And that's a fundamental business problem. How do I get you in front of more people? Not how can I win more deals? That's coming later on, but how do I get in front of more people? That's the critical bit for all of us. And that isn't always a marketing. It's a marketing and a sales and a product management responsibility all the way through. So changing presence can have a really big impact. Changing hit rate, look, there's a big thing. I tell you what, if you want to have some real impact, you should train your salespeople and you should coach your salespeople, right? And I kind of did a post about this, but look, training salespeople is really a requirement. Okay, it's important they go through it, but actually what happens is people return to normal habits. I always remember at college, and I'm probably saying this badly, but basically when you go into an NMR machine, all your protons point north, right? And then they relax. And what you're actually measuring is the time to relaxation. That's what you're imaging. You're measuring the time to going back to random. And for most salespeople, you can put them on a course, you can give them some stuff, and then it's like a matter of days before they're doing exactly what they did before. So you can train salespeople to improve things like win rates and hit rates, and you can train salespeople to get better, and you can do lots of things, but that's not what this is about. Most people actually calculate hit rate wrong. Okay, hit rate is only deals that were won divided by true deals seen. It does not include people that lost money. It doesn't include people that just didn't want to do it anymore. They had apathy. It doesn't include deals lost to a different solution. And it doesn't include, oh, I found that guy bought the guy and I never met him. They're not included. They don't get included. They're lost out elsewhere. They're lost into different sections. Most of them are lost in presence, right? But you truly, if you look at your opportunities and go through an opportunity list of a salesperson, they will win between 25 and 75% of their deals. That's what they will win. If they're actually going to completion, that's what they're going to win. So you can help salespeople improve that. And a lot of the time, the immediate thing is coaching or training. But there's a lot more things about materials and how do you help them? How do you add parts to the product that makes it easier to win? How do you give them objection handling information? How do you make them incrementally better than a competitor to help them get over the edge? How do you help them with brand? How do you help them with position and training and support and follow through? That's what you're doing with hit rate. You're making their job easier. So you can change this, but look, I have a problem with changing hit rate. First of all, you should do it anyway. You should have things going in this direction anyway. The second thing is I don't think it delivers big enough change. And there is a bit where someone will tell me, and let me give you some examples. We've recently, for one of the companies we've recently hired one of my friends who come back into the business and go, oh my God, they're adding loads. But they're not a sales guy. They're not winning hit rate. This is an entirely different thing. You've taken a decision to do a change. He's a business development guy. He's effectively changing presence. He's not changing hit rate. He's seeing more people, right? So he can turn the business around, but he's not doing it at that point. And I think business development leads to very large deal sizes, right? They're really doing big things. So I'm not sure that this is really a revenue growth thing. This will help. And I've been a sales guy all my life. This is a real tough thing to do. Sales guys do really good changes from 3 to 6 months. They're not going to deliver 10%, 50% changes, right? It's really hard. They will deliver solid change, but you need the products and you need the channel and you need the go-to-market sorted out, because they're the last cog on the wheel, and they've got to be right. Of course it does. But I'm not sure they're going to deliver real change, because again, as I say, if you're looking at real big changes, I want an OEM, you're changing a channel. Don't forget, OEM's a channel. Business development is a channel change. So you can think to yourself, like, if I do want to change hit rate, are my salespeople correct? Or do we need to change something? And how can marketing and product managers help sales to dress the product? Product management and marketing own an awful lot to do with hit rate. This isn't all on salespeople. And can it deliver large enough change? And that is, again, where I have the concern for, if a management team or a team of people want to do the last cog, it's not going to deliver enough. So you worked out that you want to change. You've worked out that there are some things that you could change. How are you going to decide? There are times where you have no idea how to change things, and that's desperation. And then you start to think about it, and I guarantee you will come up with 1,000 ways to change things. And not every good idea is a good idea, even though we told Dave in engineering that's what we said. So give us all your ideas, but there aren't always. But anyway, so we've got to whittle this down, and we have to have a decision matrix, because these decisions that we have to make are going to compete. One of the simplest ways for making a decision and having a structure is to set out policies and positions in your business, so you can use those policies and positions to say who you're going to be. And for this, I'm going to use the airline industry as an example. And a lot of you, we'll get to the end bit where I think it was the guy on Southwest fired someone for suggesting they do lunch, right? So really, companies fall into 3 categories. You can be product leadership, you can be customer intimacy, or you can be operational excellence. Chances are you can't be all 3. You can be a little bit of both, but you have to be predominantly one for this to succeed. And when a question comes up, which is, should we do this or should we do that? The answer is being answered by having a solid strategy to say something. So let's think about this. I want to go to meet a customer in France, and I'm going to fly to France to go and meet that customer. So the product leadership is, I go get picked up by British Airways, get taken down to Heathrow. I get a private car, it's a lovely car, and I get on an airplane. I get on the plane before anyone else. I have a lovely seat. I have a meal before I get on. I arrive in comfort, and I'm shepherded through the airport, the other end, Charles de Gaulle, which is not quite hell on earth, but I'm pretty sure it's close. And I'm going through this process, and I land at Charles de Gaulle. Good. That's it. That was the best product I could have. You can't believe how comfortable it was. Or I could go for an operational excellence company. I could go to EasyJet or Ryanair, and they're going to fly me. They're not going to go to Charles de Gaulle. They're going to go to Orly, another outside airport, a bit more inconvenient for where I want to go. And you know what? It's just awesome. They put me in a queue. I go to another queue. I have this. I print my boarding pass. I do all. It's like the greatest, cheapest, simplest, operationally correct way to do stuff. And it's a mission that they follow. They don't steer off. Ryanair has no business class. It is not what they're doing, right? So they kept all of their decisions to these matrices. Or my alternative is customer intimacy. I go to the helipad. It's like 3 or 4 minutes away. Someone picks me up in a helicopter and drops me at the closest helipad to where we want to go. I don't muck around with much security. I don't muck around with queuing. I don't have to be there to. That's the most customer intimate way of doing it, isn't it? You just made it for me. I might pay for that. I might have additional value for that. But there are different ways of doing it. So if I have a value discipline, when these questions come up of, okay, I can spend $1 million on product development to be the best product in the world, or I can spend $2 million on people to go and sell or create systems and websites and processes to make this work better. I want to spend money in the factory on actually delivering stuff, or I want to spend money in R&D. Which one do I want to do? Depends if you're product leadership or product or operational excellence. I could make this new product, or I've got this one-off project for a guy in Germany. He wants us just to make this one thing for him, and it's completely custom, but I can't do the other things I was planning to do, your customer intimacy. Any rules that you can introduce to a business for growing are essential. We even had a company that I was working with about 2-3 years ago, and we made a decision never to sell the product to education and research, only to sell it to pharmaceutical industry. Our general point was, if you are going to sell this to research and you're going to cold call or research any information and working with academia on this product, then, first of all, we're probably going to fire you. And second of all, if you spend a day doing it, fantastic. That's one of your vacation days, right? If you want to take our equipment, you've got to pay for it. We are that firm on you are not selling to this that we're going to make it really hard. So rules in businesses are the only ways you're going to get around decisions. And it is more important to have rules saying you're not doing things than you are, because otherwise you keep the freedom. You have to keep this bit of finding new ideas that fit into the you could, not that you're definitely not. So I think the decision section is really important. Then you got to think about funding, and a lot of people don't think about funding, but we got to think about funding. If I want to run the marathon, I've got to go to London, stay in a hotel, whatever it is. If I want to change a business, how am I going to do it? And I can bootstrap it. I can pay for it myself. I can just stop doing certain things, and it's not that difficult in reality to carve a bit of time out. You really can. It's pretty good to carve time out. Maybe you have a sales team of 3 people, and one of those people should turn to being a business development, and you move their role a little bit and give them some bigger projects to get into. Or you go up and get funded. You go and try and find money for people. If you have to make this change, you might need that funding, because your change might be time limited. You don't know. Your big revenue thing, it might be, well, look, we used to have this a lot with startup companies of burn rates and other bits and pieces, which is someone said, it was a taxi driver said to me, what do you do? And I said, we burn $1 million a month. And my job is to get us to the answer faster, because then we stop burning $1 million a month. Like, quite literally, if I arrive 1 month early, we get this done 1 month early, we stop burning the $1 million a month. That's pretty much it. So sometimes funding and getting people into that means that you can get stuff done faster. So when you're thinking about how you're going to get funded or how you're going to do things, what could be stopped or diverted to get the change to happen? And again, it's hard, and it's really hard for people to go, how can I? And I remember doing this as a sales rep, going, what do you want me to do? Just work weekends. What do you want me to do? And there's a bit of, you can find time and efficiencies, and there are certain things you shouldn't be doing, and try and get around it to get it to happen. And can you start without funding? And who could give you the funding? I was owned through a majority of my career. My business was owned by a private equity company, and they didn't like giving us more. We had a budget, we had some profit, we did what we wanted with a certain amount of money, but we had to go to them and go, look, you've got all these bets from all these other companies. This is our bet, and we think it's really, really good. Or you go off and get VC funding or angel funding or something else to get this working. But a lot of the time, I think you can fund this stuff yourself by simply taking the time as a management team or a group of people to try and get this done. The next thing is, can forgiveness be traded for funding or time? So basically, there's a big thing, which is, look, you might have to say, I'm not going to do it in 2025, and we're going to sacrifice certain things to do it by 2025 because we're making about 2026. And these are the things you're going to see in 2025 that are going to happen to make 2026 happen, right? And sometimes you're actually better to start to trade your ownership, and you're either owned by a private equity company or a VC or a bank or a bunch of shareholders. You're owned by someone, right? And that is really what you've got to think about, is, can I shift it out a bit? So, okay, that's it. Last one on this, and again, I'll give some kind of bits on this at the end for people who are not involved in management. If you're not involved in management or you're not involved in this other decision, I really, really want you to go and look for these activities being done by your senior management team. And that is the bit where you will see confidence. If you see this deep level of thought and stuff going on and these meetings happening, you should feel tremendously comfortable that this is a good company to work for. If you are seeing what looks like the shop get opened in the morning and the guy closed the door at night and turned the lights off, that's really time to worry. And if you're feeling that you could do more and nothing else been happening because of management, then you need to find out how do you deliver change in your bit and try and drag some of it along with you, or leave. That's up to you. So if you are going to do the change, my last piece of advice is don't go cold turkey. Do not do a radical change to your business, redefine who you are, and alienate the people that are working on the existing revenue streams. If you want to say, look, this is part of our growth, you make everybody in that business part of the growth. You don't say, look, that bit's, don't worry about that bit, that's dying, right? You make everyone about the growth. That's the first thing. So everyone's got to be involved in this, and you absolutely try and respect and control those existing revenue streams. The second thing is, I want you to think about whether or not this business can be layered. One of my problems with a lot of businesses is you basically go, we're going to do this radically new thing. Okay, what's going to happen? We're going to come up with this product, and it's, each sales rep should do $1 million more. So you go to sales rep Sally, and she's doing $2 million. You give her the $1 million of extra stuff, and you achieve $2.2 million and not $3 million. This is just consistent. We're just not very good at layering. And therefore, sometimes I think at that point, you need to change territories, and you need to find a little bit of pain for everyone to make sure this goes through, or you just give it to another team. Maybe that other team, particularly if you're moving markets, if you have a new market, there's domain knowledge that needs to be applied. There's different types of customers that need to be found. Sit there and go, well, I don't know how to sell in this market. This is all new for me. So can you add a layer to your business? I have my existing business and I need to add this layer on top, and I might use the same people or I might use different people because I don't want to dilute existing efforts and I want to preserve as much as I can my revenue stream. Now, understand that's a direct contradiction of what I said, where I said you should have everyone involved in growth, because now you've got to have them have a little bit of something as well, because they feel a little bit out of it. So, as I said, all the way through, if I take you back to the beginning bit of this, I want you to understand change is so unbelievably hard to do, and turning up and doing minor things is so easy to do. That's your first step for any real revenue change, is being bold enough and tough enough to saying you have to change. Then you're going to have to find the time, because that's really, really difficult. And you're going to have to find the people to do the change with, because you ain't going to do it alone, right? You're going to need a team, right? They don't have to be your connected team. They've got to be a team of people that are going to work with you, and you're going to have to hold each other to account, and you're going to have weekly meetings, and you have to lock yourself in a room, people, to make the stuff change. And it has to be separate from what you're doing at the moment. And then you have to work out what could you change. And that's really, should you change markets or add a market? Should you change the products you're selling and add additional products to the left, the right, the top, the bottom, over the corner? One of the big things I used to say to people is, if you want to do a new thing, I want you to hold a ball in your hand and sit in front of your current thing you're selling, and you're allowed to sell something as long as you can throw that ball. If that ball's hitting the same room, the same type of people, that's a good way of working out whether or not you should sell something in there. That's changing your markets or your growth, right? Changing your products and so on. I can make a product that does this and make one. What can I do with that? Is there some technology I could share? Then you've got to think about, most important, I think, really is the presence thing. That makes the biggest difference for most companies. Hit rate if you want to. And then you're going to struggle. And most people don't believe me at this point. You're going to struggle on the decisions of what change to make. And for that, you need a massive matrix to say, we are not doing this thing, and we are this company, and we're making the decision to be that company. And even doing those decisions is pretty hard. But when you get through it, once you've got a decent plan, you're just on execution. And execution's sort of fun. And that's when it becomes really good. Do the difficult thinking and actually make a decent plan where you can see real growth. All right, well, that's quite a lot for a Friday afternoon. Hopefully that's all right with everyone. I think I kind of finished off with that. So as I said, we do these programs called lock-ins, where we go to meet with customers and we basically sit with the teams of people that are responsible for change. And we basically start the conversation and we talk to them about what it's doing. We get a little bit dicey in bits and pieces, normally quite good fun. But we basically throw our resources into it. No one's allowed their phones and their computers or anything else. We're just on that point. We do those, but we also do lots of training courses and resources. So we do business development marketing, business development training. We do Strongman for improving hit rate. We do Sales Disc for new salespeople understanding how to get into it. And we do a lot of things with From Zero Marketing to grow people into marketing positions. Other than that, got the book. It's always good. I had the book that we wrote a couple of years ago, still going, but steady. But this is one where we have it on audiobook. This is just talking about really go to market. How could you change the way that you're actually selling, not how to sell, how to change it. And the next thing we have here is a webinar, which is really about, like, again, it's a hit rate thing, but really about getting into forecasting and pipeline reviews. And how do we get that to work? And that's going to happen on the 6th of December, which is a Friday. And I think I've made it 3:30 because we can get more people in America involved, which is always nice, particularly on the West Coast. So hopefully that's all good. If you have any questions, I'm going to stay on. I've just been shouted, "Hi, Daddy," from the child returning from school. But I will stay on until anyone needs anything else. I'm still here. But I'm going to wait for a little bit. Anyone, if you want to say bye or still listening, or if we can't hear you, that's always a good one. That throws me into a tiz. But anything else? I've got 15 seconds. I've got to wait. What does Owen say? Oh, big, hairy, audacious goals. They are very much like. Everyone's saying works fine, still here. Three, two, one. Always at this point, you get a bit scared. There we are. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. Next up, as I said, I will be going into pipeline reviews and how do we actually go through the opportunities and understand how we have a decent discussion about making change with them and not just going, "Oh, yeah, I think that was happening. I'll write that one in the forecast. That one looks good, doesn't it?" All right. Brilliant. Look, enjoy your weekends. It's cold. Do something nice. Eat warm food. Find comfort. Enjoy. And I will catch up with you in a few weeks. And if anyone needs anything, let me know. You can always send me a direct message with any kind of questions you've got or any feedback. And this will be available for people who want it in a couple of weeks, I think. So good. As always, thank you for the people that always turn up. It's really appreciated. I really appreciate your support. And thanks to the new people having their first time with us. Cool. Thanks, Giovanni. Excellent to see you. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Danny. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye now.